other person. Are you ready?
I'd like to call this meeting of the Bid Business and Finance Committee to order. It is 5:33, I believe. Roll call, please.
Ms. Stevens? Here. Ms. Champagne?
Here. Mr. Nordstrom is not able to make it tonight on doctor's orders. He's recovering from surgery. He had planned to attend, but the doctor kind of said, no, you're not going to be. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. To A, Board President's Statement. District 126 is committed to an equitable, respectful learning environment where bullying, harassment, racism, sexism, and hate speech have no place. Please partner with us in fostering a positive community. Public comment. We have one person signed up. Mr. Sosmanski, please.
Good evening. I've got concerns about the $115,000 furniture overage in Phase 3 that's going to be discussed tonight. The district had a budget of $700,000, but now instead of trimming furniture costs, we're canceling the English office renovation to cover the difference. So my questions are, why wasn't this overage anticipated earlier? What other cost-saving options were considered before cutting a planned project? If the English department renovation wasn't a priority, why was it on the project list in the first place? And if it was important, why is it suddenly being sacrificed? What happens to this space now? Will it sit untouched for years, potentially creating new problems down the road? Here's another concern. I've asked for committee meetings to be recorded. I've been told that it would require a cost analysis and a funding plan. Yet here we are again, shifting funds around. If money can't be reallocated for unexpected overages like this, if it can be rather, why can't it be prioritized for transparency and public access? I'm again formally requesting a cost analysis for recording all committee meetings. I've asked specific questions about this process and I've yet to receive clear answers. If transparency is truly a core value, let's put some real numbers to it and have an honest conversation. The community deserves both financial accountability and transparency. I hope the board provides some clear answers on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? I'll say that's enough. Next order of business is approval of minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last finance meeting?
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Stevens?
Aye.
Ms. Champagne?
Aye. Discussion items 4A, interfund loans. Dr. Wall.
Each year, the Board of Education traditionally approves a memorandum, a resolution that allows for a temporary transferring of funds from the working cash fund into various other funds. In this particular case, into the Ed Fund, the O&M Fund, or the Transportation Fund. While the Board approves this resolution annually, not every year do funds need to actually be transferred. This is only to cover the potential shortfall if we do not receive our tax revenues and receipts as we normally do. And so if there is a delay in receiving those revenues, sometimes we need to put a little money from working cash into one of these other funds in order to make ends meet and make sure that we are accounting for all funds. As soon as we receive the tax receipts, then the working cash fund is reimbursed from the funds to which money was lent. So this is an annual event for our district, just to make sure we can cover all of our bases.
Thank you. Item 4D, Lake County Indemnification Agreement. Dr. Wall, is that yours?
It is. So again, on an annual basis, every year, when there is development that is done and subdivisions are built, if there is an outside agreement between the developer and the city or the county, What this does is it indemnifies us against any possible harm, and it does hold the contractor and the developer accountable so that any new property development fees that would come to the county would also be shared with us under the new property when the EAV is calculated.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Moving on, hazardous walkway recertification.
Once again, on an annual basis, we have to review and recertify hazardous walkways. It really doesn't have anything to do with condition of concrete, but rather safe passage for our students to walk to and from our schools. And so this is a requirement under the Illinois School Code that these walkways be reviewed. And we have had no changes in our walkways in recent years because there have been no additional sidewalks put in place. However, we do anticipate that next year, if the roundabout here at 21st and Kenosha is completed, that there may be some extension of safe walkways to existing subdivisions that currently do not have those safe walkways. So we may have an adjustment next year.
Down Kenosha Road.
Correct.
Yeah.
But for this year, we do not have any changes to our hazardous walkways, and so it is an annual recertification of those hazards.
Any questions? I have a question.
Absolutely.
If the state requires certification of hazardous walkways, do they ever require that someone, some agency, take responsibility for making them safe?
It's really not about the hazards as you may think of them are not really about walking conditions on existing routes. If there are no sidewalks, that's considered a hazardous condition. And so the state is not going to come in and say, well, we'll fund the money to put new sidewalks in. Likewise, if there is a busy intersection, a high traffic area, that's considered a safety hazard, hazardous walkway. Railroad crossings are another. So if a student would have to cross over a railroad crossing, typically that is considered to be a hazardous route, and therefore the state says you have to provide busing in order to get students to and from school safely. So it really doesn't have anything to do with the walking per se, as it does you need to provide transportation because there is no safe way for students to walk to school. So I apologize if I did not make that clear. It's really about busing, not about walking.
Who would have known? I thought it was about walking.
Well, it only is if there's a safe pathway or not a safe pathway, but if there is one that does not exist, it's considered a hazard, and so you have to bus.
School fees, 25, 26.
Again, I went back and reviewed the changes to school fees all the way back to 2018. And since then, we have reduced, eliminated, cut back pretty much all fees to the bone. And during ESSER, we eliminated several. We did not reinstate those fees. And so we just continue to try and keep our fees as low as humanly possible. And we have not added fees in quite some time. So we continue to reduce and eliminate as much as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you very much.
And as you know, this is a shared value that we have as a board superintendent, that we maintain the fees at the lowest possible. So we're very proud that we have not reinstated a lot of those fees that we used to have, as they were very high, I mean, for many families.
Yes.
So for next year, we're anticipating the same approach.
I remember when Dr. Clark was superintendent, the fees prevented some students from playing sports who would have enjoyed sports. So yes, I'm glad we're doing that.
Yeah.
Next item E, motion to ratify publication of public hearing. Notice to conduct a public hearing for the purpose of amending the 2024 budget at the regular June 24, 2025 Board of Education meeting.
So this is another item. As I reviewed this is very unusual, at least from my experience. Normally a board is not asked to approve the language of a public hearing notice that goes into a local publication, but that has been the practice here. And so this is the formalized language is contained within the memo, and that will be published in the appropriate paper in time for the public hearing, which will be held for a purpose of amending the budget, which will take place in June. So anytime there is an amendment to a budget, there must be a public hearing, similar to when the budget is approved and the tax levy is done. There's a public hearing for both of those that is required under statute. But there is no requirement under statute that the board pre-approve the language that will be used for the public notice. So because that has been the district's practice, I continued that practice this year, but it is not something we need to do in the future unless it's something the board would like to continue to see prior to its publication.
Thank you. Any questions? I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What we do when we approve the amendment is we are basically putting the budget in line with actual expenses.
Correct.
So this is a requirement by the state, that the budget has to reflect the actual expenses.
Yes, there is a threshold for accuracy, but when we know that we've had to either reallocate or move dollars to a significant level, we want to make sure that we are transparent and we inform the board and the community that we have made these adjustments to our budget to reflect actual practice. So it is something that we work at in order to be transparent with our finances.
Now, it's required that it be published in a print newspaper.
That is correct.
Do we publish in any other media?
To my knowledge, no. We publish in our local paper, and that's all I can find to date. I don't know if we push it out on our website or not. That's something I did not look into, but I believe it's just the notice in the public paper.
Okay, thank you. Item F, moving on. Furniture costs and project scope adjustment, summer 2025.
So this particular item, as we have been planning and going through phase 3 renovations, the furniture budget for the project had originally started at $650,000 and was moved up before my arrival to $700,000 because it was noted that some of the furniture, especially for the spaces that are being renovated, for example, the band space, some of the furniture and equipment that goes in that room is far more expensive than your traditional classroom furniture. Likewise with choir, with risers, storage for folders, storage for band equipment. All of these items, along with the cost of specialized library furniture, both libraries are being renovated as well. And so those furniture costs did come in much higher than anticipated. Even though there was an anticipation we would need more funding, costs of these items have risen dramatically, and we did not settle on final pricing until about 2.5 weeks ago when we got the final furniture bid package from EBI. So while we did anticipate an increase, we did not anticipate this much of an increase. And so we have an option, and we could look at allocating more funding to that furniture, and we could say we'll just go over budget, we'll pull those dollars from cash reserves, and we will move forward with the project as proposed. But when we looked at our budget, and knowing we had already bumped up the budget, and then when we looked at what had been taking place with the facility master plan relative to our scope of projects, and the English department office was the only office renovation that was listed in our project list that was included in the overall project bid. The math office, social studies office, world language office were listed as alternate possibilities, but were not included in the original bid price. The English office was the only one that was included in the bid price. If we pull back on that, when we look at the potential reallocation of spaces under the facility master plan, especially in regard to these triangular shapes, if we pull back on the English office renovation, which Dr. Rodriguez and I both went and walked through this morning, the office itself is actually in good shape. It does not necessarily require at this time that renovation, but could be included as part of the overall continued renovation under the new facility master plan within the next 3 to 5 years. So the recommendation was that we pull back on the staff space costs in order to accommodate 21st century learning spaces for our students. So it was more of an exchange of dollars for staff versus dollars for students. And so that was the thought behind the committee's recommendation to move in this direction.
Also, I think there's misinformation about the purpose on how it was decided that these spaces be renovated. This was added, this was added, we added that came from my office, to ensure that teachers have a standard of care that is very similar as we have remodeled many offices. Some offices are original from many years ago, furniture, carpet that needs to be replaced. The English office still looks good, not like other offices. It does look a lot better. I mean, you can take a tour with me. So, and it's something that we can do in the next 3 to 5 years without sacrificing anything. But there is an option to add more money to the budget and do it as well. It's not recommended because we do have other ideas. When you look at the facilities master plan, there are things that we need to address. So this is not a priority. And this was added. I asked for this to happen because some offices have new furniture and others did not. And we're so close to ensure that all of our teachers had the same standard of care that it was a good idea in order to serve our teachers. So nothing is being sacrificed. We're in good standing. And it's something that we can complete in the next 3 to 5 years. But if the board wishes to add additional funding, it is something that we can also do. As again, the prices were a proposed budget. This does happen. The important thing is that we bring it to you and we bring it to the whole board and we talk about it. That's what matters. That there's transparency in communicating what really happened. And that's what we're doing with you today.
So with you guys saying that in 3 to 5 years you can get everything, new furniture and all, so that won't put a crack in anything as far as teachers, students. It won't put a crack on anything.
Yeah, it will not. And what will happen is that, say for example, I'm just going to talk to you straightforward, as if, I always treat this funding and this district as if it is my own house. Mm-hmm. I go ahead and I recommend to you that we do the English office. But then in 2 years, I recommend that that space is used for something else. What did I just do? I misused your money. So at this time, based on other ideas and based on the priorities of the facilities master plan, it is in the best interest of the district to hold on that one. We want to do the other ones, but it's in the best interest to hold on that one. If it was not, the difference is 115,000. We can easily, do that. If it's really, really needed, I would have brought a different recommendation. Trust me that if it was really, really needed, we will find the resources in other ways, grants, whatever the case might be. But again, I will be doing that, and then in 2 years or 3 years, perhaps changing that area. And I want to make it very, very clear. It's priorities of the facilities master plan. I am not saying that we're changing the area to make it something else. So that's too early to say. We're not there yet. But later on, you will hear about the priorities of the facilities master plan, and one of those priorities are the learning spaces and the triangular classrooms, and ideas on how we can not eliminate that completely, because that's going to be impossible, but make it better or decrease, spaces where children are learning, where it's a better setup. It's similar to what we did with science. If you remember the science classrooms, board members whacked. I think all board members whacked the science classrooms, and you saw the conditions of learning. So when you compare that to today, it's something very similar to that.
So are you
approach.
trying to get rid of all the triangle classrooms?
If we didn't have budget restrictions, yes, but we can't do that. The triangular classrooms are very small in size and uncomfortable for our teachers and our students, but it is what we have. But we want to decrease the amount, as many as possible. And we did that with science. We were able to eliminate those classrooms and provide a classroom that is better with labs, and better conditions for our students.
So they are triangles, is there any way you can put maybe 2 or 3 of those together, or they're not made that way? Where you can...
We have to do that and we discussed that. The problem is that when you do that, now you lose classrooms. So for example, if you need 20 classrooms and we do that, which we discussed, that will bring it down to less classrooms, maybe 16 or 14 or who knows. But it would decrease the amount of space unless we build more. But many discussions and many ideas have come to the table and to my office about things that we can do to make it better, to make it, and we do have some ideas. Furniture has helped a lot. TV screens has helped a lot. Balancing classes so that we're not putting, a high class size. So it does have a lot of different complexities. But ideally, no triangular classrooms. Ideally, realistically, that will happen, anytime soon with the current funding structure and construction projects that we're doing. But can we minimize and decrease? Yes, we can. If we are serious about it, we can. And that is one of the priorities of the facilities master plan.
So the bottom line is, by prioritizing, we avoided $115,000 overrun.
Mm-hmm. You avoided that.
Okay.
You avoided that. Because if there is opportunity to address classrooms and learning spaces, of course it will come as a recommendation because the students benefit from that. So we're not saying it's not going to happen. It's just that in the next in the next couple of years, we will address that based on whatever decision and direction we get from the board in recommendations with the F&P.
Dr. Ball, what are the factors driving this $115,000 increase?
Part of it is actual material cost. Part of it is lack of availability. We needed to make sure that we could get our order in a timely way in order not to pay late fees and overages, which we have accomplished that. We are ready to order. But there are definitely material cost increases and labor cost increases that were not anticipated to the level that they've occurred.
Are these from imports?
Most of this is actually manufactured stateside. Not all of it, but much of it is. A lot of it comes from Wisconsin Bench, which is a local Wisconsin company. And then there's some specialty furniture from Winger and from Bradford Systems, which high-end. I mean, very. When we put in spaces like this, it's rare that you're going to get an opportunity to renovate this space again, probably in my lifetime or yours. And so when you renovate a space like this, that's a specialty space, you want to make sure that you're putting in high quality so that it will last. And so that's what we have done by selecting and choosing furniture that will last.
Their raw materials, are they locally sourced?
That I can't answer. I don't know the answer to that question. I can find out.
Well, I think you'll find out if the timber comes from Canada. We may face some tariffs in the future, but you'll find out. Thank you very much.
But I think, at the end of the day, what you see here is an example of when a challenge comes our way and we have the ability to say no, we can do that. The same thing will happen with the facilities master plan. Who can predict the prices? We will have a good estimate based on industry standards, but we got to be able to say yay or nay depending on what's coming our way, not just take any recommendation. And this is nothing, we've done this type of work before. Our science classrooms were, they came higher. We discussed that, we approved that. So those things do happen. It's not that it doesn't happen.
Yeah, the supply chain during COVID.
Yeah, exactly so.
Okay, moving on. Item G, budget carousel, final results, fiscal year 26.
Yeah, so the final results for the budget carousels, which we started in November, we have had updates to the board and conversations. And again, talking about transparency, here we have an idea where the administration engages with the my office with the different offices, and we talk about the following year and the return on that investment and a cost-benefit analysis, and how much do we add or eliminate to the budget for the following year. We're not talking about this year, we're talking about the following year, FY26. So depending on the revenues that the school district receives is how much you can or you can't invest or spend the following year. As you know, this year we had a challenge as the state revenue was less than other years. So of course we have to be very conservative on our FY26 budget. In prior years we were able to add in instructional spaces, in staffing. We have added several positions. If you remember, social emotional learning, social workers, we added teachers, we have added safety staff. We have added services for our students based on funding. For next year is tight, so we're not making any cuts for next year. The budget that you will see will not have reductions, but it's not going to have the nice additions that we were able to do years before, because the funding is tighter and we have other obligations with our bargaining units, with our bills, with our people, with our teachers, with our staff. So basically the recommendation is about $1.3 million of additions, but at the end of the day we're probably going to end up adding about $350,000. So there's many things that were recommended that we add for next school year that I will have to put on hold or say no. So those discussions are ongoing with the administrators. But what I can assure you is that there will be many great possibilities. We will move things around. We will reclassify positions. We will reclassify expenditures. We will be creative in making sure that the staff has what they need to continue the work in this pathway to proficiency. But it's not the same as past years. It is more conservative, it is tighter, where again, the administration and staff are bringing forward about $1.3 million, of which I am anticipating around $350,000 only. And that is to stay sustainable, to stay fiscally responsive, to make sure that we can sustain everything that we add into our school district. I'll say this and I end with this. When you look at the COVID dollars, when you look at grants, many school districts added many positions and then they had to eliminate. We didn't have to do that. We ensured that grant dollars were used for other items other than staffing, because staffing is a recurring cost and it increases year after year. So I will be very conservative and very open with this process. And as you know, in the month of November, December, January, I have open discussions with administrators about ideas. This is not a superintendent's budget. It's a budget of all of us coming together and informing the board based on the priorities of the strategic plan. So that's where we're at. I mean, I am very hopeful. I am very happy with the results. I am very enthusiastic because every administrator has come to my office with ideas. And if we cannot do it one way, there's another idea, and then there's another idea, and eventually we will end up with a very solid budget for next year. Without reductions, that is stable, that is balanced, and that will guarantee that we can sustain those additions in the next couple of years.
And so what I'm hearing is the through line here is we do not hire too much staff with the intent of reducing costs with layoffs.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to add any position, we try to make sure that it will be stable for years to come.
Yes, when the board asked us, and when you asked me, and I think it was particularly you, Ms. Champagne, about social emotional learning and the need to add more social workers and also more counselors, which we did, those positions are still here. We funded that with local dollars. So we maintained those positions. We didn't add all of those positions and then eliminate it. And that has taken place in other districts. So we want to make sure that whatever we do with our budget is something that we can sustain, over time. And especially if there's a return on that investment. With social emotional learning, it is amazing the work that our social workers and counselors are doing. So we want to sustain that, maintain that, and invest in that.
And I personally think that providing a secure work environment and sustainability for employment helps teacher retention.
Oh yes, most definitely. Most definitely. I mean, our faculty and staff, they want to make sure that their job is secure and that there's a commitment from the school district in keeping them. So our HR office keeps telling me, recruitment is not the thing anymore, it's retention. Retention is the new recruitment. I mean, I get that from HR. And it is true. I mean, we got to find ways to retain our staff as there are shortages, of teachers. So that retention piece is important. And for staff members to feel and know that we are going to be true to our contracts and the future of our school district. Very soon we are going to be negotiating again. And again, you can negotiate with no money. You gotta have the ability to bring something, because the cost will continue to increase for everybody. And everybody includes our faculty and staff. Our faculty and staff will need to pay more for services to get to work, to provide for their families. So we want to make sure that in our 5-year plan, we can sustain the operations of the district. And I am very proud that since my time here with you, we have not had to do any what they call reduction in force, a ref. We haven't done that. So it's testament of the great work and a stable budgeting process.
And I recall that during negotiations, our community was very adamant that we pay our staff fairly, and we're honoring that.
Yes. Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it was and it is a community value as evidenced during our negotiations. So that is our biggest contract. But not only that, I mean, also our staff. So we made a big commitment to our faculty and staff. And in the future, in order to continue with these great services, 90-90-90 approach, 90% graduation, freshman on track, a post-secondary success for our students, that we have a stable staff that is committed, and we have a responsibility for them as well. They're coming to the table, they're producing results, we gotta come to the table and show commitment.
I agree. Okay, moving on. Other items. Capital improvements update.
Not a whole lot to report here. The storefront doors out here at this entryway are still planned for the 2025 spring break, starting in 2 weeks, actually. I believe we're at that point in the year. And then we have turned our efforts now toward the logistics of the Phase 3 Summer 2025 through December 2025 projects. There are a lot of moving pieces and parts to this, with both your band, your orchestra, your piano lab, your art classes all being dispossessed of their normal spaces. So finding temporary spaces for them for the first semester, and all of the logistical moving parts. The library is being boxed up, everything moved out so that renovation can occur and then move back in. And so we've moved to a lot of logistical planning at this point in time. And we are, with the board's approval of the summer 2026 projects, we are moving into design and development for planned projects for 2026. So exciting, but not a whole lot of other stuff going on right now.
Okay, thank you very much. B, draft facilities master plan.
So Allison will provide us with a draft of the facilities master plan, and explain, where are we in the process based on additional feedback that we have obtained and analyzed. The big idea is that we are looking at this facilities master plan as a way to ensure that there's future focused learning as part of it. that there's shared responsibility, and that there is and that we address the challenges of predictable funding. But those challenges of funding might also come with opportunities, so that we're ready, and that it is a roadmap for the school district, as approved by the board, where we are able to put a stop, start, continue. This is not, and these priorities are not intended for something to happen, but as a roadmap for us to consider in the next couple of years. So the new board will come on board and will make a lot of these decisions, because none of these plans start immediately. So Allison will will provide us with that information and the feedback and any updates, and then Dr. Wong will close it up. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Thank you very much for having me back to walk through sort of the draft of this report. So a lot of the information we'll see, things that you've been seeing before, but I'm also going to kind of walk you through how it is all landed in sort of the draft report that you have in front of you. Because what's in front of you kind of has the accumulation of everything that we've been talking about over these past many months. And then obviously there will be some slides in here that show some of the, I will call it newer, but I will say it's something that you haven't seen before, but it's just a different way of looking at the information that we've been talking about. So as I mentioned, I'm going to go through kind of where some of these things fall in the full report. Obviously, all of the work that we've been doing still goes back to our underlying mission, vision, and guiding principles. All of this is then a response to that stakeholder engagement process where we look to really identify those needs, wanting to make sure that that broad group of voices was being heard throughout the process, and then how from those need statements we transitioned and prioritized to really come up with what we're calling the priority 1 investment strategies that are the recommendation from our committee. And then, as Dr. Rodriguez mentioned, we have a sort of the accumulation of that recommendation and some next steps, and as well as our Matt here from Camosi is here as well to talk about their involvement in this process, as they have been very actively involved and will continue to be, depending on how the board continues to move forward with this information. So just, again, this is something that you have seen before, but I want you to just understand that this information now lives within this report on pages 5 and 6. So going back to our mission and our vision, as well as those guiding principles. And you'll see kind of as we began and really prioritized those need statements, it really came back to these guiding principles, the ideas of safety and security, flexible and future-forward learning environments, creating a sense of pride within all of our environments. Those are really the priorities that rose to the top and will be reflected in that final recommendation for the investment strategies moving forward. Also just wanting to highlight on the fact that, as we talked about it the last time I was here before you, we had a great process of going through and hearing those broad groups and perspectives. And within your report, within the appendice, you'll have access, if you haven't already seen, the meeting minutes that came out of all of those discussions, because that is what informed the process as we moved forward. So moving into our recommendation, as Dr. Rodriguez just shared, coming back to, since the board has just recently taken that resolution to adopt Vision 2030 as they look forward, I think you see those familiar themes of future-focused learning, shared accountability of having a flexible and adaptable plan, as well as that predictable funding, which will be critical for any next steps of this process to go forward. I took here, these are the need statements that you've seen previously. They're on 2 different slides just because of the number of them that we have. But what you see kind of bolded in red, those are really the need statements that where the priority investment strategies came from. Now that's not to say that the ones that are shown just in the kind of normal text, black ink, are not therefore being responded to in the recommendation, but are often things that will be consideration. As we've talked about, this plan is really meant to be a roadmap. It's meant to be a reference document for the district, for the board, so that as you look to take on investments in the future, you have that broad, comprehensive plan in front of you to say, if we start to go and look at it to do improvements in a specific area, let's make sure that we're not being short-sighted if there was some other need that had come out of it. So again, those bolded statements really just tie directly into our priority 1 investment strategies, but there are a number of these other ones that are just somehow either layered into that process or are just available as something for us to be thinking about with any investment strategy that we would go forward with. All right. The priority 1 investment strategies, I shared this slide with you when I was here last, kind of not in the order that came out of the full thing, but strategy 1 about our classroom learning environments. Strategy 6 is related to our restroom facilities. Strategy 7 is continuing to utilize a comprehensive long-range plan for restoration and repair of just the facility infrastructure, making sure that you have a strong foundation from which to build. This also encapsulates the health and life safety survey that is still being completed, but certainly as those considerations would be woven into any work moving forward. Strategy 8 is related to the air conditioning in our physical education and athletic spaces. Strategy 39, our locker room environments, and then strategy 47 is related to a traffic study at this site here. And then I just want to make note that that sort of flow chart there on the right, that was how all of this kind of unraveled. We had 13 different needs statements. From there came 47 different strategies, and really it was then that agreeing on the needs, going through that option development, prioritizing them to really get to these items as being our final recommendation as those highest priority pieces. This is the same legend that I shared with you last time, but the diagrams that are going to follow are going to be a little bit different. But just as a refresher, we broke out the investment strategies into some kind of broader categories just from a color coding standpoint to make it easier to find and identify information. And then you'll see sort of those different hues from light to dark are an indicator of what we are at this point anticipating might be the renovation required for those specific investments. Now all of that obviously would be further refined with any design processes, so this isn't to say that this is exactly what it might be, but it's based on our conversations and what we anticipate to be the needs. So a light renovation is more of just that interior, cosmetic, finishes and things like that, furniture, technology. Something that is a medium renovation is a bit more invasive. It may include cutting in a new door or a new window, or something that would be more extensive, updating the mechanical system where you have branches of ductwork and things that come from further away and extend into other areas. That just becomes a little bit more invasive. And then a heavy renovation would be something where we're actually moving walls and reconfiguring space. So that's kind of how that is applied throughout all of those different categories. So this first slide here, this is the site plan for this building here, and really the strategy that, from a site perspective, is related to that 47, is doing a traffic study, continuing to identify safety measures and procedures for how traffic flows at this site. And what the committee decided was, really it needs to be studied. There has to be a formal traffic study to identify what the recommendation might be to go forward and make any improvements. Could be as easy as we need to put up more signage, to do we need to change any of the flow and things like that. So that obviously would all come as a part of a further project, but the priority investment would be taking on that traffic study to better identify the needs and challenges. As we move inside this building and we look at the first floor, strategies 6, 8, and 39 are all included. So that looks at updating restrooms. It's a little bit harder to see because those are kind of the smaller blocks, but they're kind of highlighted in that gray throughout. You'll see that light pink in our field house and our gymnasium spaces, and that's reflective of the air conditioning improvements. And then finally you see that darker plum almost color, and that is for reconfiguration of locker rooms to enhance those environments. As we move upstairs, this is where you continue to see that strategy 6 for restrooms, but you also see more of the strategy 1 where there are classroom environments that haven't yet been brought up to the district standard. So updating those finishes, furniture, lighting, fire suppression, those types of things would all be layered into that. As we shift over then to ZB East, a lot of the same characteristics here, so you see strategy 1 and strategy 6 with our learning environments, as well as our restroom upgrades. I will note that slightly, the more medium green in some of those classrooms is because of the operable partitions that occur in those spaces. And that was something that we heard was a need from being able to formally divide those spaces in order to enhance the acoustical separation between them and therefore enhancing the overall learning environment. We do also note, it's a little bit faint to tell on this screen, at least from my perspective, the corridors are highlighted in sort of a light yellow, just knowing that as we go through and touch those classrooms, that would be a great time to kind of look at the corridors as well as, you know, do those get a fresh coat of paint? Do those get additional signage or branding? Things like that to infuse that school pride. But also knowing that if we're doing things with lighting or fire suppression, we might be doing some work in those corridors anyhow, just to be able to get to those spaces. Looking then at the main level, a lot of the same with strategy 1 and 6, but you also then see strategy 8 and 39 at this building, where we're adding that air conditioning to our gymnasiums, as well as reconfiguring our locker rooms. And finally, at the upper level, or I'm sorry, this is actually the lower level, I did that in reverse, more of strategy 1 and 6, updating our learning environments and upgrading those restrooms. Any questions before I move away from those diagrams? So I know when I presented here back in February, we saw the diagrams that had kind of everything, right? That was all of the opportunities that were identified based on the needs that had been identified. This is now looking at those specific targeted investments that really rose to the top through our investment, or our prioritization process, community town halls, all of those things, which formulate our recommendation.
Questions? I think you did a great job of capturing what people wanted and what they thought it was a priority.
It was a collective effort. I think we had a lot of, which is what helps, bringing in those broad stakeholder voices, broad perspectives, so we know that we've been here, you know, did everything we could to hear from all of those different voices.
Thank you.
So a couple last slides, and I'm going to turn it over actually to Matt. This is my last slide for now.
Alison, how many times did you present it to us? Executive cabinet?
Here,
Yeah.
or executive cabinet,
Just
we had, what,
7
nine different meetings, I believe.
Yeah, so and I ask that because sometimes you start a process and you have your first meeting with the architect and then you have the last one. That's not the case. So again, be careful when you say, we can do this for 2 years. 2 years of what? I mean, it's how much time we invested a lot of time, and I invested a lot of my own personal administrative time in order for us to problem solve this, in addition to student surveys and all other activities.
I would say that was 9 formal meetings, a lot of emails, a lot of back and forth for other finalizing things. So these final 3 points I just wanted to share, and I think they'll be touched on a little bit more in the report, and as I think Dr. Wolf closes. But there is, I alluded to it a little bit, there was a number of investment strategies that as a committee we identified were more, they weren't, let's call them, you know, big picture. It wasn't, I'm going to go into a classroom and renovate that classroom. It was more of these concepts that really could and should be layered into everything that we do. The idea of branding, for instance. Everywhere we go, if we're going to go renovate a space, let's think about what is the appropriate way to be renovating that when we're infusing that school pride at the same time. So those are what we call layered strategies, and you'll see there's a specific list of those in your draft report that you have in front of you, as well as some that we call ongoing strategies. And those are really tied to a lot of the facility and infrastructure work that you've already been doing, and really our committee just said, we're just going to keep doing that. Keep looking to upgrade our roofs, keep looking to address health and life safety items, those types of things, that, again, and looking for those opportunities to include them in any larger, you know, if you choose to do a larger investment project, make sure we're incorporating those in so you're getting economy of scale and being thoughtful about where those dollars are spent. So with that, I will turn it over to Matt.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to kind of talk about Camosi's partnership with the district, with WOLD in this process. We've kind of been, I'll call it a quiet partner up until now, with some insights given in all the meetings, but we've our role with the board's approval of this master plan will become much more robust. I guess I just want to talk about, without putting the title on master planning, what our job has been since we've been part of the district's team.
and we're appreciative of the continued opportunities to do so. Really, since we've built the auditorium here for you folks, every project that we've gone around has been mindful with the future focus always there. So 21st century learning environments. You know, taking spaces that might have been something else and making them into something a little bit more functional, and then going back and then creating spaces that were, again, more cutting edge and up to speed with what the current learning environment should be. One of the examples I wanted to highlight was the south parking lot, since it's so visible. It's something that has come up pretty much ever since we started doing construction on the auditorium, because we kind of destroyed a portion of it, had to rebuild it back. We probably could have done more there, but it was with decisions between the school district, with Camosi, with contractors even recommending, say, hey, it might be good to just hold off on, you know, doing the full lot until there's more projects that are coming. We don't want to destroy it, build it new, come back, destroy it again, have to spend money 2 or 3 times on something that really wasn't in terrible shape, but you know, we're going to now finally get to that point with this 2026 project where that parking lot will have all the attention paid to it, will be brought up to very functional, safe standards, and all that will, you know, come to fruition now that, you know, it wouldn't make sense rather than having to spend the money at a time where it didn't make sense. I guess our role here coming into this is really just to kind of be overseeing some of what the cost implications might be as the priorities have come into focus. You'll notice in the reports that you have that there are some costs applied to each of the strategies that Allison just kind of went through with everybody. With the understanding that the crystal ball is a little foggy, but we're able to at least put costs to what we know, what we've done here in the last several years. All that's represented within those costs as you see them. And then everything that's really beyond the 5-year prioritized list will be something that we'll address as those projects become more in focus down the road too. So, and then as Allison did highlight too, we have layered approaches to how things get folded into the project. So we're still going to be paying attention to life safety and security, ADA compliance, all those things that have an overarching relevance to everything that we do here. You know, the clocks on all the classrooms being up to date and bringing all those up to speed is an example of that too. And then another role we'll always have is mindful scheduling, so that we don't have disruption of the operation of the school as much as possible, and bringing that full circle into what that might mean cost-wise when it comes to supply chain, or what it might mean for labor market or time of year. Obviously, a lot of what we'll probably be doing going forward will be over summer projects, so making sure all that fits within the appropriate time frames and costs are really kind of the overarching goals that we're going to have as your partner in this process too. So with that, I will say thank you, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Wohl to close us out.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you and Allison both being here tonight. It's been a lot of work. I only got to be here for the exciting part, which was kind of the wrap-up of everything to get things moving forward. So I do want to just close out on this presentation with the facility master plan. The timeline for all of this, the board adopts the facility master plan at the March meeting. If that all goes through, then we would need a funding strategy to support this facility master plan. And so the goal is to have that actually developed no later than June 30th of this year, of 2025. I'll be working very closely with our treasurer on some revised investment strategies, as well as scouring for different grants and working with Dr. Rodriguez very closely to come up with a funding strategy for the next several years of our facility master plan. Then what we would come back after we have that funding strategy in place, we will come back to the board, the new board, which will be seated in the fall of 2025, and speak much more plainly about some of where are the priorities for this board. Where do you see us moving forward with our facility master plan? To make sure that we are aligning the priorities that the community, the board, all the stakeholders have brought forward with our financial capacity to complete the plan. And so that would be the next step. And then we would want to develop an actual timeline for those projects as we at the time see them, no later than December of this year. By the end of December, knowing full well that all of the moving parts that are in place now with our summer 2026 projects out there already, that the first phase of this facility master plan, if all goes well, would not actually begin until the summer of 2027. So already the board has been engaged in some long-term planning between phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Now we're moving into summer 26. That planning started a year ago. Now we're getting in design development. We're planning on the facility master plan. Actual start of implementation of that plan wouldn't be until the summer of 2027. So it's all about that forward thinking, always planning ahead, always trying to budget ahead, utilization of district resources to continue refreshing, revitalizing, and maintaining state-of-the-art facilities for our students and for our community. And so I'd like to really commend the board for its thought process in commissioning the facility master plan, and also from Wold. Allison did a lot of the legwork on this presentation, and then Kamosi's been such a great partner for the district as we move through these different phases. And I've been through this a few times. I'm really thrilled with the level of support and partnership that you have established with both Kamosi and with Wold throughout this process. So, Dr. Rodriguez?
Yeah, at the end of the day, the easier thing to do is to do nothing. And that's what many people do. The easier thing to do is to do nothing. If we took that approach as a school district, these facilities and our finances and our situation would have looked a lot different, and not positive. It would be a lot different, negative. So the boards of education over the last couple of years, and I have worked with many board members and some that are not on the board right now, have made a commitment of excellence. And this facilities master plan is an example of that. The great thing about this is that we don't have to do anything that is suggested here. We have that option. And when we get there, we get there. Right now, we're thinking about the future. We are thinking about, we're future focused. We're looking at possibilities, opportunities. But if the board decides that this is something that we need to wait for a couple of years, we wait. So the opportunities in funding might not be there. That's your decision. So we hope to, we're bringing this forward with that idea, we're bringing this forward with that approach, that since day one, our partnership and the work that we did with Word and Kamosi is around the idea that this is only a roadmap, and we will decide at the appropriate time. But meanwhile, we're planning. We're planning a 5-year financial. We already promised you that in January, and funding for a facilities master plan. But again, if the board decides that you want to put that on hold, that's easy work. I mean, I would appreciate a year or two of a break of construction. It's a lot of work. It's a lot easier not to have these construction projects. You gotta remember that I am the one that gets the complaints from the teachers and from the administration because of the noise level, but then I am the one that also gets that, wow, thank you very much. We thank you and the board for doing this. So it's very fulfilling to see the smiles of students and happy teachers, and also personally to say, we did this. When others are cutting, when others don't have possibilities, we thought about ideas. So it's not easy work. It takes a commitment from our teachers, our students. They have to endure the noise, different parking spaces. It hasn't been an easy process, but it's been fulfilling, and it is something that is in the best interest of the district. So this plan, again, that's what it does. It just sets a roadmap for us to decide, what we do, at what time, based on what's best for the district.
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that stakeholders were involved, and that they were heard, and that their ideas were built into this plan, and that you're including health and safety, routine maintenance, and putting at the forefront of some of the big concerns we had about air conditioning in the gym and the ADA facilities. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that this was constructed thoughtfully, 10 years ahead, that we could stop it if we need to stop it. And you're right, it's a roadmap. We're not locked into anything. We have not committed money. It's a plan. And I think it's a good one.
Yes, see, this time we had the ability to work with more people and then have a professional, put this together. Whereas in the past, we develop our phases based on needs. So as an example, you had a swimming pool that was changed, but then you ended up with a space. The original idea was some science labs, and that was the original idea. Through the process of feedback, listening to others, we ended up with a new career and technical education area of 2 floors, not 1. So again, have we gone with the original idea and not listened to people? I'll take you a little bit further. Then we started talking about the outside field. And it was not meant to be 9 lanes. It was supposed to be 7 or 8. It was supposed to be natural, not artificial. So to the process of listening to others, listening to the board, listening to staff, we made something much better than what was originally planned, at the same cost. We had the ability to do something with the science classrooms. So it could have been just renovate those classrooms and the shape of those classrooms. Through the process of working with teachers, listening, we were able to have better facilities and move those classrooms to what used to be industrial arts.
Well, isn't it true that because of our routine maintenance and the fact that we are so dedicated to doing the routine maintenance when it's necessary, that we had spare ESSER funds to put into the field? We had extra money because we had already planned for the items that ESSER paid for. We were able to be reimbursed from ESSER for that, which gave us extra money that 90% of that field was paid for.
Yes, the majority of the field was paid for by new dollars or things that we were not counting on. So again, but it is through the process of listening and feedback and ideas. How do we make the best of what we have? Because we don't have a lot, but we have enough to make a difference. See, I'm not of the mindset of putting excuses about what we don't have. Let's look at what we have and the possibilities and new dollars and how we make this better for our students and staff. But in all of the projects, again, there has been a lot of engagement and our teachers are involved. And we have a model of construction that is phenomenal with our architect, construction manager, owner, and consistent meetings, throughout the year. So that makes a big difference. So it's, I'm very happy about the results of this, and look forward to continue the conversation, because I don't see any of these projects happening until we had the conversation and we develop a funding strategy and we look for opportunities as it relates to this facilities master plan.
Well, see, I like the fact that you guys didn't just run and do whatever. You listened to the community. You guys, had a lot of meetings. You did a lot of nice planning. The biggest thing was planning. So
Yep.
I kind of really like that, yeah.
Yep. It's been every project has been a success story and a celebration. And we thank you for that award and Kamosi, because all you have to do is look at a newspaper and see what happens in other places when it comes to construction projects. It's not an easy process, and we do have something very special where we're very focused on the directives and the goals of the board. And we bring it to the board. We're not just doing, I didn't wake up and say, we're going to do a field and science labs just one day after. No, that took a lot of conversation and process and what's best for the district. It's not just a one-person decision.
Right, good communication.
Yeah. So we bring this to the board, to the whole board, and we have a more formal explanation. And again, it's another plan that we have for the future, just like we will have our strategic plan, our community outreach plan, and then put all of those things together in the fall. Just bring it all together, and that will be the direction of the district for the next 5 years.
Sounds good, thank you. Moving on, C, other items. Are there any other items?
No? Nobody?
Going once, going twice. We have adjourned. Thank you all for coming out.